The Courting of Dinah Shadd by Rudyard Kipling. All day I had followed at the heels of a pursuing army, engaged on one of the finest battles that ever camp of exercise beheld 30,000 troops, had by the wisdom of the government of India, been turned loose over a few thousand square miles of country, to practice in peace, what they would never attempt in war. Consequently cavalry charged unshaken infantry, at the trot infantry captured artillery by frontal attacks delivered in line of quarter columns, and mounted infantry skirmished up to the wheels of an armored train, which carried 102 nothing more deadly than a 25-pounder Armstrong 2 Nordenfeldts, and a few score volunteers all cased in 3/8-inch boilerplate. Yet it was a very lifelike camp. Operations did not cease at sundown. Nobody knew the country and nobody spared man or horse. There was unending cavalry scouting, and almost unending forced work over broken ground. The Army of the South had finally pierced the center of the Army of the North, and was pouring through the gap hotfoot to capture a city of strategic importance. Its front extended fanwise, the sticks being represented by regiments strung out along the line of route backwards to the divisional transport columns, and all the lumber that trails behind an army on the move. On its right, the broken left of the Army of the North was flying in mass, chased by the Southern horse and hammered by the Southern guns, till these had been pushed far beyond the limits of their last support. Then the flying sat down to rest, while the elated commandant of the pursuing force telegraphed that he held all in check and observation. Unluckily, he did not observe that 3 miles to his right flank, a flying column of Northern horse with a detachment of Gurkhas and British troops had been pushed round as fast as the failing light allowed to cut across the entire rear of the Southern Army to break, as it were, all the ribs of the fan 103, where they converged by striking at the transport reserve ammunition and artillery supplies. Their instructions were to go in, avoiding the few scouts who might not have been drawn off by the pursuit, and create sufficient excitement to impress the Southern Army with the wisdom of guarding their own flank and rear before they captured cities. It was a pretty maneuver, neatly carried out. Speaking for the 2nd Division of the Southern Army, our first intimation of the attack was at twilight, when the artillery were laboring in deep sand. Most of the escort were trying to help them out, and the main body of the infantry had gone on a Noah's Ark of elephants, camels, and the mixed menagerie of an Indian transport train bubbled and squealed behind the guns, when there appeared from nowhere in particular British infantry, to the extent of 3 companies, who sprang to the heads of the gun horses, and brought all to a standstill amid oaths and cheers. "How's that, umpire?" said the major commanding the attack, and with one voice the drivers and limber gunners answered "Hout," while the colonel of artillery sputtered. "All your scouts are charging our main body," said the major. "Your flanks are unprotected for 2 miles. I think we've broken the back of this division, and list and there go the Gurkhas." Our columns swayed and surged irresolutely. 3 batteries, the divisional ammunition reserve, the baggage, and a section of the hospital and bearer corps. The commandant ruefully promised to report himself, cut up to the nearest umpire, and commending his cavalry and all other cavalry to the special care of Eblis, twirled on to resume touch with the rest of the division. "Well, bivouac here tonight," said the major. "I have a notion that the Gurkhas will get caught. They may want us to reform on stand easy till the transport gets away." A hand caught my beast's bridle and led him out of the choking dust. A larger hand deftly canted me out of the saddle, and 2 of the hugest hands in the world received me sliding. Pleasant is the lot of the special correspondent who falls into such hands as those of Privates Mulvaney, Orthoris, and Leroyd. "And that's all right," said the Irishman calmly. "We thought we'd find you somewheres here by. Is there anything av yours in the transport?" Orthris'll fetch out. "If the brutal and licentious soldiery av these parts get sight av the thruck," said Mulvaney, making practiced investigation, "they'll loot everything there. A bane fed on iron fillins and dog biscuit these days. But glory's no compensation for a bellyache praise. Be we're here to protect you. Sore beer, sausage, bread, soft, and that's a curiosity soup in a tin whiskey, by the smell av ut and fowls. Mother av Moses, but ye take the field like a confectioner tease scandalous." "Airs a orficer," said Orthoris significantly. "When the sergeant's done lushin', the privet may clean the pot." I bundled several things into Mulvaney's haversack before the major's hand fell on my shoulder, and he said tenderly, "Requisitioned for the Queen's service. Walsally was quite wrong about special correspondents. They are the soldiers' best friends. Come and take potluck with us tonight." And so it happened. Amid laughter and shoutings, that my well-considered commissariat melted away to reappear later at the mestable, which was a waterproof sheet spread on the ground. The flying column had taken 3 days' rations with it, 106, and there be few things nastier than government rations, especially when government is experimenting with German toys, Erbswurst tinned beef of surpassing tinniness, compressed vegetables and meat biscuits may be nourishing, but what Thomas Atkins needs is bulk in his, inside the major assisted by his brother officers purchased goats for the camp, and so made the experiment of no effect long before the fatigue party sent to collect brushwood had returned. The men were settled down by their valises. Kettles and pots had appeared from the surrounding country and were dangling over fires. As the kid and the compressed vegetable bubbled together, there rose a cheerful clinking of Meston's outrageous demands for a little more stuffin'. With that there liverwing and gust on gust of chaff as pointed as a bayonet, and as delicate as a gun butt. "The boys are in a good temper," said the Major. "They'll be singing presently. Well, a night like this is enough to keep them happy." Over our heads burned the wonderful Indian stars, which are not all pricked in on one plane, but preserving an orderly perspective draw the eye through the velvet darkness of the void, up to the barred doors of heaven itself. The earth was a gray shadow more unreal than the sky. We could hear her breathing lightly in the pauses 107, between the howling of the jackals, the movement of the wind in the tamarisks, and the fitful mutter of musketry. Leagues away to the left, a native woman from some unseen hut began to sing. The mail train thundered past on its way to Delhi, and a roosting crow cawed drowsily. Then there was a belt-loosening silence about the fires, and the even breathing of the crowded earth took up the story. The men, full-fed, turned to tobacco and song their officers with them. The subaltern is happy, who can win the approval of the musical critics in his regiment, and is honored among the more intricate step-dancers by him, as by him, who plays cricket cleverly. Thomas Atkins will stand in time of need, when he will let a better officer go on alone. The ruined tombs of forgotten Mussulman saints heard the ballad of Agra town, the Buffalo Battery, marching to Kabul, the long, long Indian day, the place where the Punkakuli died, and that crashing chorus which announces, "Today of all those jovial thieves, who appropriated my commissariat and lay and laughed round, that waterproof sheet not one remains. They went to camps that were not of exercise, and battles 108 without empires. Burma, the Soudan and the frontier fever, and fight took them in their time." I drifted across to the men's fires in search of Mulvaney, whom I found strategically greasing his feet by the blaze. There is nothing particularly lovely in the sight of a private thus engaged after a long day's march. But when you reflect on the exact proportion of the might, majesty, dominion, and power of the British Empire, which stands on those feet, you take an interest in the proceedings. "There's a blister bad luck to Ut on the heel," said Mulvaney. "I can't touch Ut, prick Ut out, little man." Orthoris took out his housewife, eased the trouble, with a needle stabbed Mulvaney in the calf with the same weapon, and was swiftly kicked into the fire. "I've bruck the best av my toes over you, ye grinnin' child av disruption," said Mulvaney, sitting cross-legged and nursing his feet. "Then seeing me, oh Uts, you sore, be welcome and take that Meriden Scutt's place. Jock, hold him down on the cinters for a bit." But Orthoris escaped and went elsewhere as I took possession of the hollow he had scraped for himself and lined with his greatcoat. Lyrid on the other side of the fire grinned affably, and in a minute fell fast asleep. "There's the height av politeness for you," said 109 Mulvaney, lighting his pipe with a flaming branch. "But Jock's eaten half a box av your sardines at one gulp, and I think the tin too. What's the best wid you sore, and how did you happen to be on the Lawson's side this day when we captured you?" "The Army of the South is winning all along the line," I said. "Then that line's the hangman's rope. Savin your presence, y'all learn tomorrow how we were threaded to draw thim on before we made thim trouble, and that's what a woman does. By the same token well be attacked before the dawnin'. And Ut would be better not to slip your boots. How do I know that by the light av pure reason here are 3 companies, av us, ever so far inside, av the enemy's flankin' a crowd av roarin' tarin' squealin' cavalry gone on just to turn out the whole hornet's nest, av them, av course, the enemy will pursue by brigades like as not, and thin well have to run for Ut. Mark my words. I am av the opinion av Polonius win. He said don't fight wid ivry scut for the pure joy av fightin'. But if you do knock the nose av him first, and frequent, we ought to ha gone on and help the Gurkhas." "But what do you know about Polonius?" I demanded. This was a new side of Mulvaney's character. "All that Shakespeare iver wrote in a Dale Moore 110, That the gallery shouted, said the man of war, carefully lacing his boots. Did I not tell you av Silver's theatre in Dublin when I was younger than I am now? In a patron av the drama ud Silver would never pay actorman or woman, they're just dues, and by consequence his companies was collapsible at the last minute thin. The boys would clamour to take a pardon oft, as not ud Silver made them pay for the fun faith I've seen Hamlet played wid a new black eye, and the queen as full as a cornucopia. I remember once Hodgin that listed in the Black Tyrone, and was shot in South Africa. He said just ud Silver into givin' him Hamlet's part, instead av me, that had a fine fancy for rhetoric in those days. Av course, I went into the gallery, and began to fill the pit wid other people's hats, and I passed the time av day to Hodgin walkin' through Denmark, like a hamstrung mule wid a pall on his back. Hamlet says I, there's a hole in your heel, pull up your sh tokens. Hamlet, says Roman 1 Hamlet Hamlet for the love av decency da trop, that scullin pull up your sh tokens. The whole house begun to tell him that he stopped his soliloquisms mid between my sh tokens, may be common down, or they may not, says he screwing his eye into the gallery, for well he knew who I was. But after this performance is over me and the ghost'll trample the tripes out av you Terence wid 111 euros bray, and that's how I come to know about Hamlet. Those days, did you iver have one devilment and nothin' to pay for it in your life, sore? Never without having to pay, I said. That's through tease main when you consider on ut, but ut's the same wid horse, or fut a headache, if you da trink and a bellyache, if you eat too much and a heartache to cape all down faith. The beast only gets the colic and he's the lucky man. He dropped his head, and stared into the fire, fingering his mustache the while. From the far side of the bivouac, the voice of Corbett Nolan's senior subaltern of B Company uplifted itself in an ancient and much appreciated song of sentiment, the men moaning melodiously behind him. With 4 to 5 O's in the last word, even at that distance, you might have cut the soft South Irish accent with a shovel. For all we take, we must pay, but the price is cruel high, murmured Mulvaney, when the chorus had ceased. What's the trouble, I said gently, for I knew that he was a man of an inextinguishable sorrow. Tease hell to me dumb hell through ut, all and next time when the fit comes I will be as bad again. Good cause the regiment has to know me for the best soldier in ut, better cause have I to know meself for the worst man. I am only fit to tash the new drafts, what ill never learn myself, and I am sure as though I heard ut that the minute one av these pink-eyed recruities gets away 113 from my mind. Ye now and listen to this Jim Boisier, I am, that the sergeant hoods me up to him for a warnin'. So I tash, as they say at musketry instruction, by direct and ricochet fire. Lord be good to me, for I have stud some throuble. Lie down and go to sleep, said I, not being able to comfort or advise Ure, the best man in the regiment, and next to Orthoris, the biggest fool. Lie down and wait till we're attacked. What force will they turn out guns, think you? Try that wid your lords and ladies twistin' and turnin' the talk, though you mint ut. Well, ye could say nothin' to help me, and yet ye never knew what cause I had to be what I am. Begin at the beginning and go on to the end, I said royally, but rake up the fire a bit first. I passed Orthoris bayonet for a poker. That shows how little we know what we do, said Mulvaney, putting it aside. Fire takes all the heart out av the steel, and the next time maybe that our little man is fighting for his life, his brattle'll break, and so y'all ha killed him. Manin no more than to cape yourself warm teas, a recruity's thrick, that passed the clanenrod sore. I snuggled down abashed, and after an interval the voice of Mulvaney began. Did I ever tell you how Dinah Shadd came to be wife av mine? I can't remember, I said casually. Was it before or after you made love to Annie Bragin, and got no satisfaction? The story of Annie Bragin is written in another place. It is one of the many less respectable episodes in Mulvaney's checkered career. Before long before was that business av Annie Bragin and the corporal's ghost niver woman was the worse for me when I had married Dinah. There's a time for all things, and I know how to cape all things in Plesebrin the da trink, that capes me in my place, with no hope av common to be aught else. Begin at the beginning, I insisted. Mrs. Mulvaney told me that you married her when you were quartered in Crab-Bakar barracks. And the same is a cesspit, said Mulvaney piously. She spoke through. Did Dinah twas this way talkin' av, that have ye iver fallen in love sore? I preserved the silence of the damned. Mulvaney continued. After that I sickened a while in tuck, thought to my regimental work, conceding meself I would study and be a sergeant and a major general 20 minutes after that. But on top av my ambitiousness, there was an empty place in my soul and me own opinion. Av meself could not fill ut says, I 116 to meself. Terence Uray a great man and the best set up in the regiment go on and get promotion, says meself to me, what for says I to meself? For the glory av ut, says meself to me, will that fill these two strong arums av yours Terence go to the devil, says I to meself, go to the married lines, says meself to me. Tease the same thing says I to meself, av Uray the same man ut, is said meself to me in wid, that I considered on ut a long while. Did you ever feel that way sore? I snored gently knowing that if Mulvaney were uninterrupted, he would go on the clamor from the bivouac fires beat up to the stars, as the rival singers of the companies were pitted against each other. So I felt that way in a bad time ut was once bane a fool. I went into the married lines more for the sake av spakin to our ud colour sergeant Shadd, than for any thruck wid womenfolk. I was a corporal than reduced afterwards. But a corporal, then I've got a photographed av meself, to prove ut yowl take a cup av tay wid us. Says Shadd I will that I says though tay is not my diversion. 'Twould be better for you if ut were says ud mother Shadd, and she had ought to know for Shadd in the ind, av his service da trank bungful each night. Then when the kettle was to be filled Dinah came in me Dinah p. 117 to list. And thin when the kettle was to be filled Dinah came in me Dinah's sleeves, rolled up to the elbow in her hair, in a winkin' glory over her forehead, the big blue eyes beneath twinklin' like stars on a frosty night, and the tread av her 2 feet lighter than waste paper from the colonel's basket in ordly room when uts emptied bane. But a schlip av a girl she went pink at seein' me, and I twisted me mustache, and looked at a picture forninst the wall niver show, a woman, that ye care the snap, av a finger for her and begad shell come bleat into your boothiels. I suppose that's why you followed Annie Bragen, till everybody in the married quarters laughed at you, said, I remembering that unhallowed wooing, and casting off the disguise of drowsiness. I am layin' down the general theory, av the attack 118, said Mulvaney driving his boot into the dying fire, if you read the soldier's pocketbook, which niver any soldier reads y'all see, that there are exceptions when Dinah was out av the door and 'twas as though the sunlight had shut to mother av Hyven sergeant, says I. But is that your daughter I've believed that way these 18 years? Says ud Shadd his eyes twinklin', but Mrs. Shadd has her own opinion like every woman tees wid yours. This time for a miracle says, Mother Shadd thin why in the name, av fortune did I niver see her before says Roman, one because you've been thrapsin' round, with the married women. These 3 years past, she was a bit av a child, till last year and she shot up with the spring says ud Mother Shadd ill thrapes. No more says Roman one diu main that, says ud Mother Shadd lookin' at me sideways like a hen looks at a hawk whin. The chickens are runnin' free try me until says Roman one wid, that I pulled on my gloves da trank, off the tay and went out av the house as stiff, as it general prayed for well I knew, that Dinah Shadd's eyes were in the small av my back out, av the scullery window faith. That was the only time I mourned, I was not a cavalryman for the pride av the spurs to jingle. I went out to think and I did a powerful lot av thinkin', but ut all came round to that schlip av a 119 girl in the dotted blue da tress, with the blue eyes and the sparkle in them thin. I kept off canteen, and I kept to the married quarthers, or nearby on the chanced av meetin' Dinah. Did I meet her my time past? Did I not wit a lump in my throat as big as my valise and my heart goin' like a farrier's forge? On a Saturday morning 'twas good day to ye, Miss Dinah, and good day to you corporal for a week or two. And divil a bit further could I get becausie, av the respect I had to that girl, that I could ha broken between finger and thumb. Here I giggled, as I recalled the gigantic figure of Dinah Shadd, when she handed me my shirt. Ye may laugh grunted Mulvaney, but I am speakin' the trut and tease you that are in fault. Dinah was a girl that would ha taken the imperiousness out av the Duchess av Clonmel in those days flower hand foot, av shod air, and the eyes av the livin' mornin'. She had that as my wife tod you Dinah, and niver aught else than Dinah Shadd to me. 'Twas after 3 weeks standin' off and on a niver mackin' headway, except through the eyes, that a little drummer boy grinned in me face when I had admonished him, with the buckle av my belt for riotin' all over the place, and I am not the only one that doesn't cape to barracks. Says he 120. I tuck him by the scruff av his neck me heart was hung on a hairthrigger, those days you will understandin' out wid ut says I or ill lave no bone, av you unbreakable speak to Dempsey, says he Howlin' Dempsey, which says I ye unwashed limb av Satan, Av the bobtailed dragoons, says he's seen her home from her aunt's house in the civil lines. 4 times, this fortnight child says I drop in him your tongues stronger than your body go to your quarters I am sorry, I dressed you down. At that I went 4 ways to wonst Hunton Dempsey, I was mad to think that wid all my airs among women, I should ha been chatted by a basin-faced fool, av a cavalryman not fit to trust on a trunk. Presently I found him in our lines, bobtails was quartered, next usin' a tallowy toffavy son, av a shemule, he was wid his big brass spurs and his plastrons on his epigastrons, and all, but he niver flinched a hair. A word wid you Dempsey, says Roman, one you've walked wid Dinah Shadd 4 times this fortnight gone. What's that to you, says, he ill walk 40 times more and 40 on top av, that ye shovel-footed clodbreakin infantry lance-a-corporal. Before I could yard, he had his gloved fist home on my cheek, and down, I went full sprawl. Well 121, that content, you says he blowin' on his knuckles for all the world like a Scots Grey's orfser content. Says Roman 1, for your own sake man, take off your spurs peel your jacket and onglove tees, the beginnin' av the overture stand up. My collarbones bruck, says he p 121 to list. He stud all he know, but he niver peeled his jacket and his shoulders, had no fair play I was fightin' for Dinah Shadd, and that cut on my cheek. What hope had he forninst me stand up, says I time and again when, he was beginnin' to quarter the ground and yard. High and go large, this isn't ridden school, I says, oh man stand up and let me get in at ye, but when I saw he would be runnin' about I grup his sh talk in my left and his waistbelt in my right, and swung him clear to my right front head, under he hammerin' my nose, till the wind was knocked out av him on the bare ground. Stand up, says I, or ill kick your head into your chest, and I would ha done it too so ragin' mad I was. My collarbones bruck, says he helped me back to lines, ill walk, wid her no more so I helped him back. And was his collarbone broken I asked, for I fancied that only Leroyd could neatly accomplish that terrible throw. He pitched on his left shoulder point was next day the news was in both barracks and when I 122 met Dinah Shadd wid a cheek on me like all the regimental tailor's samples. There was no good mornin' corporal, or aught else, and what have I done, Miss Shadd, says, I very bold plantin' meself, forninst her, that ye should not pass the time of day. Ye've half-gulled Rough Rider Dempsey, says she, her dear blue eyes fillin' up. Maybe, says Roman 1, was he a friend av yours, that saw ye home 4 times in the fortnight? Yes, says she, but her mouth was down at the corners, onin' what's that to you, she says. Ask Dempsey, says I, pertined to go away. Did you fight for me, then ye silly man, she says, though she knew it all along. Who else, says I, and I tuck 1 pace to the front. I wasn't worth says she, fingerin' in her apron. That's for me to say, says Roman 1, shall I say Yes, says she in a saint's whisper, and at that I explained meself, and she told me what every man that is a man and many that is a woman, here's wonst in his life. But what made ye cry at startin' Dinah darlin', says Roman 1, your bloody cheek, says she, duckin' her little head down on my sash. I was on duty for the day and whimperin' like a sorrowful angle. A very long pause. Well, said Roman 1, 'twas all wrong, said Mulvaney, with an enormous sigh, and I know that every bit av was my own foolishness. That night I tuck maybe the half av 3 pints, not enough to turn the hair of a man in his natural senses. But I was more than half drunk wid pure joy, and that canteen beer was so much whiskey to me, I can't tell how it came about. But becausie, I had no thought for any one except Dinah. Becausie I hadn't slipped her little white arms from my neck 5 minutes. Becausie the breath of her kiss was not gone from 124 my mouth. I must go through the married lines on my way to quarters. And I must stay talkin' to a red-headed Mullinger heifer, av a girl Judy Sheehy, that was daughter to Mother Sheehy, the wife of Nick Sheehy, the canteen sergeant, that black curse, av Sheelig be on the whole brood that are above ground this day. And what are ye hoodin' your head that high for corporal, says Judy, come in and thry a cup av tay, she says, standin' in the doorway bane, an untrustable fool, and thinkin' av anything. But tay I wint. Mother's at canteen, says Judy, smoothin' the hair av hers, that was like red snakes, and lookin' at me cornerways, out av her green cat's eyes. Ye will not mind, corporal. I can endure, says I, ud Mother Sheehy bane, no divarshin av mine. Nor her daughter too. Judy fetched the tea things and put them on the table, leanin' over me very close to get them square. I dhl back thinkin' av Dinah. Is afraid you are av a girl alone, says Judy. No, says Roman 1, why should I be? That rests with the girl, says Judy, drowin' her chair next to mine. Thin there let ut rest, says I and thinkin id been a trifle unpolite. I says the tays, not quite 125 sweet enough for my taste. Put your little finger in the cup, Judy, twill make ut nectar. What's nectar, says she. Somethin' very sweet, says I, and for the sinful life av me, I could not help lookin' at her out av the corner av my eye, as I was used to look at a woman. Go on wid ye, corporal, says she, you're a flirt. On me soul, I am not, says Roman one, then you're a cruel handsome man and that's worse, says she, heaven big sighs and lookin' crossways. You know your own mind, says Roman, one, 'twould be better for me if I did not, she says. There's a dale to be said on both sides av, that says I unthinkin. Say your own part av ut. Then Terence darlin, says she, for begad I am thinkin I've said too much or too little for an honest girl, and wid that she put her arms round my neck and kissed me. There's no more to be said. After that, says I, kissin' her back agino the main scut, that I was my head ringin' wid Dinah Shadd. How does ut come about, sore, that when a man has put the comether on one woman, he's sure bound to put it on another? Tease the same thing at musketry one day. Every shot goes wide, or into the bank in 126. The next lay high lay low sight, or snap ye can't get off the bulls for 10 shots runnin'. That only happens to a man who has had a good deal of experience. He does it without thinking, I replied. Thankin' you for the compliment, sore, ut may be so, but I am doubtful whether you mint ut for a compliment here now. I sat there wid Judy on my knee tellin' me all manner av nonsense and only sayin' yes and no, when id much better ha kept tongue between teeth, and that was not an hour after I had left. Dinah, what I was thinkin, av I cannot say, percently quiet as a cat ud mother, he came in velvet drunk. She had her daughter's red hair, but 'twas bald in patches, and I could see in her wicked ud face clear as lightnin' what Judy would be 20 years to come. I was for jumpin' up, but Judy niver moved. Terence has promised, mother, says she, and the could sweat bruck out all over me. Ud mother, he sat down of a heap and began playin' with the cups. Thin you're a well-matched pair, she says, very thick. For he's the biggest rogue that iver spoiled the queen's shoeleather, and I am off, Judy, says Roman one, ye should not talk nonsense to your mother. Get her to bed, girl. Nonsense, says the ud woman, prickin' up her ears like a cat, and grippin' the table edge. 127 twill be the most nonsensical nonsense for you, ye grinnin' badger. If nonsense teas get clear you, I am goin' to bed. I ran out into the dehark, my head in a stew and my heart sick, but I had sense enough to see that id brought ut all on myself. It's this to pass the time av day to a pangendrum. Av hellcats, says Roman one, what I've said and what I've not said do not matter. Judy and her dam will hood me for a promised man, and Dinah will give me the go, and I desarve ut. I will go and get da trunk, says I, and forget about ut, for tease plain I am not a marrin' man. On my way to canteen, I ran against Lascelles' colour sergeant, that was av e company, a hard man wid a torment, av a wife you've the head av a drowned man on your shoulders, says he, and you're goin' where y'all get a worse one come back, says he. Let me go, says Roman, when I've thrown my luck over the wall wid my own hand. Then that's not the way to get ut back again, says he, have out wid your throuble, you fool boy, and I told him how the matter was. He sucked in his lower lip. You've been thrapped, says he. Jew she, he would be the better for a man's name to hers. As soon as can any thought wide, put the comether on her. That's the natural vanity of the base Terence. You're a big-born fool, but you're not bad enough to marry into 128. That company, if you said anythin', and for all your protestations, I am sure ye did or did not, which is worse yet. Ut all lie like the father of all lies. But come out av ut free av Judy. Do I not know what ut is to marry a woman that was the very spit and image av Judy when she was young? I'm gettin' old and I've larnt patience. But you, Terence, you'd raise hand on Judy and kill her in a year. Never mind if Dinah gives you the go, you've desarved ut. Never mind if the whole regiment laughs, you all day get shut av Judy and her mother. They can't da trag you to church. But if they do, they'll da trag you to hell. Go back to your quarters and lie down, says he. Thin over his shoulder, you must ha done with them. Next day I went to see Dinah, but there was no tucker in me. As I walked I knew the throuble would come soon enough without any handlin' av mine, and I dreaded ut sore. I heard Judy callin' me, but I hilled straight on to the Shadd's quarthers, and Dinah would ha kissed me, but I put her back. When all said, darlin', says I, you can give ut me, if you will, though I missed out. 'Twill be so easy to come by then. I had scarce begun to put the explanation into shape before Judy and her mother came to the door. I think there was a veranda, but I am forgettin'. I am pressed for time today, says Judy as bold as brass, and I've only come for Terence and me, promised man, 'tis strange to find him here the day after the day. Dinah looked at me as though I had hit her, and I answered straight. There was some nonsense last night at the Sheehy's quarthers, and Judy's carryin' on the joke, darlin', says Roman 1. At the Sheehy's quarthers, says Dinah very slow, and Judy cut in wid he was there from 9 till 10. Dinah Shadd and the bet their half. Av that time, I was sittin' on his knee. Dinah Shadd, ye may look and ye may look and ye may look me up and down, but ye won't look away that Terence is my promised man. Terence, darlin', 'tis time for us to be common home. Dinah Shadd niver said word to Judy. Ye left me at 8:30. She says to me, and I niver thought that why'd leave me for jadipromises, or no promises go back wid her. You that have to be fetched by a girl, I am done with you, says she. And she ran into her own room, her mother followin' 130, so I was alone wid those two women, and at liberty to spake my sentiments. Judy Sheehy, says I, if you made a fool av me betune the lights, you shall not do ut in the day. I niver promised you words or lines. You lie, says ud mother Sheehy, and may ut choke you, where you stand. She was far gone in da trink. And though ut choked me where I stood, id not change, says Roman 1. Go home, Judy. I take shame for a decent girl like you draggin' your mother out, bareheaded on this errand here now. And have ut for an answer. I gave my word to Dinah Shadd yesterday, and more blame to me. I was wid you last night talkin' nonsense. But nothin' more you've chosen to thry to hood me on ut. I will not be held thereby for anythin' in the world. Is that enough? Judy went pink all over, and I wish you joy av the perjury, says she, duckin' a curtsy. You've lost a woman that would ha wore her hand to the bone for your pleasure. Indeed, Terence, you were not thrapped. Lascelles must ha spoken plain to her. I am such as Dinah Isteed. I am ye've lost a fool, av a girl that'll niver look at you again, and ye've lost what ye niver had, your common honesty. If you manage your men as you manage your love makins, small wonder they call you the 131 worst corporal in the company. Come away, mother, says she. But divil a fut would the ood woman budge diu hood by that, says she, peerin' up under her thick grey eyebrows. I and wud, says I, though Dinah gave me the go 20 times ill, have no thruck with you, or yours, says Roman 1. Take your child away, ye shameless woman. And am I shameless, says she, bringin' her hands up above her head. Thin, what are you, ye lion shamin' weak-kneed dirtus old son? Av a sutler am I shameless, who put the open shame on me and my child, that we should go beggin' through the lines, in the broad daylight. For the broken word of a man, double portion of my shame be on you. Terence Mulvaney, that think yourself so strong by Mary, and the saints by blood and water, and by ivry sorrow that came into the world, since the beginnin', the black blight fall on you and yours, so that you may niver be free from pain for another when ut's not your own. May your heart bleed and your breast drop by drop, would all your friends laughin' at the bleedin' strong you think yourself. May your strength be a curse to you, to drive you into the divil's hands against your own. Will cleared you, or may your eyes see clear, every step av the dark path you take. 132, till the hot cinders av hell put them out. May the ragin' dry thirst in my own ood bones go to you, that you shall niver pass bottle full, nor glass empty. God preserve the light av your understandin' to you, my jewel, av a boy, that ye may niver forget what you meant to be and do when you ray wallow in the muck. May ye see the betther, and follow the worse as long as there's breath in your body, and may ye die quick in a strange land, watchin' your death before ut takes you an honorable to stir hand or foot. I heard a scufflin' in the room behind, and thin Dinah Shadd's hand dropped into mine like a roseleaf into a muddy road. The half av that ill take, says she, and more too. If I can go home, ye silly talkin' woman, go home and confess. Come away, says Judy, pullin' her mother by the shawl. 'Twas none av Terence's fault for the love, av Mary stopped the talkin'. And you said ood mother Sheehy, spinnin' round fornince. Dinah, will ye take the half av that man's load, stand off from him, Dinah Shadd, before he takes you down to you that look to be a quartermaster sergeant's wife in 5 years. You look too high, child, you shall wash for the quartermaster sergeant when he plaises to give you the job out av charity, but a private's wife you shall. 133 be to the end. In every sorrow of a private's wife you shall know, and niver a joy, but one that shall go from you like the running tide from a rock. The pain av barren you shall know, but niver the pleasure av giving the breast, and you shall put away a manchild into the common ground wid, niver a priest to say a prayer over him, and on that manchild ye shall think ivry day av your life. Think long, Dinah Shadd, for y'all niver have another though you pray till your knees are bleedin'. The mothers av childer shall mock you behind your back, when you're ringing over the washtub, you shall know what ut is to help a drunken husband home and see him go to the yardroom. Will that plaise you, Dinah Shadd, that won't be seen talkin' to my daughter? You shall talk to worse than Judy, before all's over the sergeant's wives, shall look down on you contemptuous daughter. Ave a sergeant, and you shall cover it all up wid a smiling face when your heart's burstin'. Stand off av him, Dinah Shadd, for I've put the black curse of Sheelig upon him, in his own mouth, shall make ut good. The half av that ill take, says she p. To list. She pitched forward on her head, and began foamin' at the mouth. Dinah Shadd ran out wid water, and Judy dragged the ood woman into the veranda till she sat up. I'm old and forlor, she says, thremblin' and cryin' and tease, like I say a dale more than I main. I said the ood woman, hard words break no bones, and Dinah Shadd'll kape the love av her husband, till my bones are green corn. Judy darlin', I misremember what I came here for. Can you lend us the bottom av a take-up, av tay, Mrs. Shadd? But Judy dragged her off cryin', as though her heart would break, and Dinah Shadd and I in 10 minutes we had forgot it all. Then why do you remember it now, said Roman 1, is ut like id forget ivery word that wicked ood woman spoke fell through in my life afterwards. And I cud ha stud ut, all stud ut, except when my little Shadd was born, that was on the line av March 3 months. After the regiment was taken with cholera, we were between Umbella and Calca Thin, and I was on picket when I came off duty. The women showed me the child, and ut turned on ut's side and died. As I looked, we buried him by the road, and Father Victor was a day's march behind with the heavy baggage. So the company captain read a prayer, and since then I've been a childless man, and all else that ood mother she he put upon me. And Dinah Shadd, what do you think, sore? But what do you think, he repeated, as I was straightening out the crushed fingers. My reply was drowned in yells and outcries from the next fire, where 10 men were shouting for Orthris Privet Orthris, Mista Ortheris D. Boy Captain Orthris, Field Marshal Orthris, Stanley U. Penortho Pop, come heir to your own company. And the Cockney, who had been delighting another audience with recondite and Rabelaisian yarns, was shot down among his admirers by the major force. You've crumpled my dress shirt, Orrid, said he, and I shan't sing no more to this air bloomin' drowin' room. Learid, roused by the confusion, uncoiled himself, crept behind Ortheris, and slung him aloft on his shoulders. Sing ye bloomin' hummin' bird, said he, and Ortheris, beating time on Learid's skull, delivered himself in the raucous voice of the Ratcliffe highway of the song. I listened to our little man, now singin' and shoutin', as though trouble had never touched him. Do you remember when he went mad with the homesickness, said Mulvaney, recalling a never-to-forgotten season, when Ortheris waded through the deep waters of affliction, and behaved 138 abominably. But he's talkin' bitter truth, though. When I woke I saw Mulvaney, the night dew, gemming his mustache, leaning on his rifle at picket, lonely as Prometheus on his rock, with I know not what vultures tearing his liver.